Good afternoon. How goes the hour? This is Willie Flowers with the NAACP Maryland State Conference, trying to give you information around this great state of Maryland. But we start talking about what's going on in this world, in this nation, and then we bring it home. And I tried to see what was happening in the world, particularly pertains to Black African people, that the United States gave another $775 million Ukrainian war. Now, um, I'm not going to bash the Ukraine or Russia or anybody else, but I do know that $775 million on top of whatever else they have given to Ukraine to fight somebody is a whole lot of money when we have broken communities across this country, a broken social and we can talk about other major cities that could use $775 million to do just about anything. Now that's an overwhelming amount, and like I said, in addition to what else they're giving, and this is what we know about. So I it's painful to know that a priority is given to war in another country by another country when we have challenges going on in our country. And that's the international news that I wanted to report. Now, as a Wyoming, with the daughter of Vice President Dick Cheney and her loss in Wyoming, which everybody expected, but it in some kind of way, her name is Liz Cheney, congressperson there. But in some kind of way, because of the publicity that she has received, she's now eligible and recognized to become the next the Republican nominee. Now, this is consistent with what's going on because there's a lot of power plays happening. As we know, the Bush family and the Trumps don't get along. Cheney is some kind of way, of course, connected to the Trump family, the Bush family. And so this attack has been going on. We saw how Trump took out Jeb Bush in the 2016 election. So there's some fight going on. But one thing that I want to remind everybody else is, even though they have these personal fights, that when it came down to what happened with Roe v. Wade, the 6 votes that ended Roe v. Wade in this country came from the Bush family and the Trump family. And that's a message to us that even though these people don't get along personally, they're going to fight publicly. That when it comes down to changing policy, they stay on the same page. And as Black African people in this country, with all that we have to remember that. I mean, we can fight, we can disagree, but we do have to have a process and a commitment to empower our people. And that's what I want to share about that. Look out for Liz Cheney. She will be running for president. I think that the publicity of what she did with the January 6th committee and the publicity that she's getting now for losing a race in some ironic way makes her eligible. And quite frankly, you don't necessarily need Wyoming to win a presidential election. You just need name recognition, which she has gotten. Her father has involved in the nation for the last 40 years or 50 years. The Cheneys have been involved, and she is set to raise money, which they can do, so that she can be in Iowa during the next presidential. So listen out for her. Now, locally, I want to acknowledge the folks in Howard County. They pulled together a 6-week Freedom School program. I have a T-shirt here, and it was a successful program. It was basically connected with this whole policy around summer learning. So it was a program for 6 weeks that gave, I guess, young people an immersion into technology, into arts, into financial literacy. And it, worked out. They closed it up last week, and I want to applaud everybody who was involved in that process. We're hoping to continue it throughout the year so it can be a part of after school time as well. But definitely to hit the pieces around technology advancement and understanding arts and just being better students so that they can be, and also let me add history. History was a significant part of it because we took the position from a policy standpoint that it's not up to mainstream uh, public schools to determine how we teach our children about our great history. So be on the lookout for that. We hope to promote it to other branches throughout the state, if not the nation, so that summer learning connected to Freedom School, just using that name triggers interest, will be a part of what we do with the NAACP. Now, I want to let you know that this program today will include our state GOTV coordinator for the NAACP, Martin Mitchell, who comes to us as a council member in Laurel, but he's also, when he ain't doing what he's doing now, he's a political action chair for the Maryland State Conference, NAACP, and he was just the most qualified person to do what we're doing right now, because it's the case for the first time in our history, I think, when we started doing this kind of stuff with the NAACP, that the state of Maryland is a priority state for the NAACP to fund election activities until election night, obviously. But we have a unique situation in the state of Maryland now because we have, as you know, we've had a Republican governor for the last 8 years. While there's nothing wrong with that, it is the case that Republicans don't do things the way we do when it pertains to trying to uplift our community. As everybody knows, the great story about the Red Line in Baltimore City that was set out to do everything that needed to happen as it pertains to public transportation. But if you know how large public works projects operate, it also helps to enhance communities, creates jobs. It definitely would have created better rail services for the people of Baltimore. But when Governor Hogan, I don't even think he got into office, he ended the Red Line. And had he done it right now, the Red Line would be completed and we would have other options for transportation in the Baltimore region. That did not happen. And so we literally have to start over again with the hope that the right person will be elected so that these types of opportunities, as it pertains to community development, as it pertains to increase in housing value for families in the areas where the Red Line are, and just overall revitalization for communities like Baltimore that need it. So that's one frame, one thing that we're looking forward to as it pertains to how we elect folks, who gets elected, because as they say, elections have consequences, and we're getting down to how the NAACP will be operating. And again, like I said, we have our state GOTV coordinator, Martin Mitchell, to kind of give you an idea of what is next for what his job means and how that will enhance the state of Maryland this election year. I want to welcome to the stage council member, state coordinator, state GOTV coordinator, PAC chair, all that, Martin Mitchell. How you doing, Martin?
Hey, what's good? I appreciate all the titles and everything, but I'm just here to do the work. Just here to do the work. So I guess we'll talk a little bit about what's going.
So,
oh, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off there.
Exactly. So I can set the frame. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You have opportunity to inspire the state, particularly branches of the NAACP, to motivate them around election turnout so that things can end up successful, whatever success looks like. You can tell us on election day, because we do know that if Black folks don't come out, Democrats don't get elected. So the pressure on you is to do that. What's the step to doing it?
So, of course, we have several different branches, chapters and councils across the state. The thought is like working with those different units to imagine, what type of GOTV, what they want to do in their area, because the GOTV work in Howard County might look different from the GOTV work in Calvert County. But also working with them to identify some down ballot races that they want to focus on or have a high priority on. So those are, of course, some key points. And the biggest thing is really making sure that there's work being done. So if they need ideas, helping them get ideas about how to get out there, um, talking to them about the different local groups that they work with already in the area, and about like how they can collaborate. The biggest thing that a lot of people should know, and I'm sure most of the units already know, is that there's money out there for you to do your GOTV organizing work this summer. So I mean, they're not necessarily this summer, but fall. So the thought is if you want to get out there and advertise, if you want to get out there and pay door knockers, if you want to get out there and put literature out there on behalf of just getting people out there registered to vote, or making sure they get out there to the ballot box. The thought is something called the Built-in Community Voice Fund. So we call it BCVF. And so we're encouraging not only all these different units to apply, but we're encouraging groups that partner with the NAACP that share the same mission of making sure that we get as many Black folks registered to vote and out to the ballot box. Because one of the important things is not only registering people to vote, but making sure that it's on their mind and top priority to get to the ballot box. And one of the ways that I would like to do that is just by being conversational in transaction and conversational and interactions with people, and not transactional. So the thought is not just coming to you, are you registered to vote? Screaming that you registered to vote, but coming to you like, hey Willie, cannabis is going to be on the ballot, and then you might be like, oh no, I had no clue. Well, how do you feel about that? Most people, they feel one way or the other. Well, to voice your opinion, you got to be registered to vote. You got to voice your opinion through your vote. And so the thought is talking to them about issues instead of just the candidate, because of course, as you said, there's several candidates, but talking about the top of the ticket, I know that women's rights is going to be on the ballot, because one candidate has mentioned that he's very much against taxpayer funded women's rights. So that's what people have to remember when they are thinking about not voting or not participating, or when they're thinking about making that vote, like why they're making that vote, making a conscious effort.
Well, you said two things that kind of stood out that I think you probably need to explain to some folks, because it could be new terminology. I do want to focus on this term you use, transactional uh, organizing, I guess. Uh, and that means that you just assume that someone is going to vote for something because you say so. Is that what you're saying, basically?
Yes, and it's the thought is like, just because I want something, right? So like the thought is not only because I say so, but also because the thought is it's less demanding, and it's a little less pushy, like
Right.
like some people are kind of like, whoa, don't ask me that, you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
if you
because if you've done, I guess you've done national campaigns, and I remember the toughest thing about going into a new community is that people don't trust you. And so if you're going in there, and we often do this, and it's really compounded when a person is of a different ethnic background than you go in a community, particularly Black communities, and you got people who are not Black telling Black people you need to, do this because of this, and it doesn't go over well. And so I guess what you're saying is that you're pivoting to something that's, you say, conversational, but it means that you're trying to balance out the significance of voting to where they are in their home space,
sure,
at the real micro level.
sure. Absolutely. I mean, the thought is all roads lead home, all politics are local, right? So the thought is keeping that in mind, because just just names are not going to get, the non super voter out, right? So there has to be issues that they care about, that you're speaking to.
Now, when you talk about down ballot races, what does that mean?
So for us at the NAACP, we're really looking for state, house, and lower. So anything really at the county level, or more local level, school board races, county executive, county councils. So definitely interested in somewhat of the the state house races, but more so focused on those county level races.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess the reality is, and I think this conflict comes up all the time in the state of Maryland because you have Democratic um, districts that are overwhelmingly Democrat, and the tradition in the state of Maryland has been when a person runs for governor, they look for support from the senators, but the
Sure.
senators, most of them don't have competition in the primary. So I find it hard to that someone who doesn't have competition will work harder for someone else than they work for themselves. Is that a piece of this lack of turnout in elections that have caused Democrats to have fewer gubernatorial elections in the last 20 years than Republicans in a Democratic state? Or is it
Sure,
just
sure.
one piece of it? Is that just one piece of it?
I would like to say that's just one piece, right? Because I mentioned to you that I think one piece was, especially looking at Anthony Brown's race, definitely congratulations to him. But looking at his race for governor, the thought is they just anticipated that they would win some of these Democratic strongholds, right? So they didn't put resources or much time, in those areas, right? Like, because they figure they need to win the West, some things in the West, some things over East, and some other areas where they're less known. But the thought is like, if I recall, Hogan won several areas in which, like, we would have expected the Democratic nominee to win, right? So,
Yeah,
I mean, I think that's part of it too, like where we focus on our general election strategy. Um,
yeah.
I think that
Beat
that plays part of it.
he beat he beat Jealous in Howard County in the last election. But again, it's about connections. And so, what we want to talk
Well,
about also, I guess one part of your
he
job is
won.
building. What did you
No,
say?
I didn't know he won Howard County. I didn't know he won Howard County over Jealous.
I can't hear you.
No, I was saying I didn't know he won Howard County over Ben.
Yeah, he won. The numbers. Mhm. The numbers were um, well. Let I do think he won. You can check it, but the uh, the numbers for the county executive were inconsistent with the numbers for Jealous by a lot. And as you know, in that same election, which is kind of ironic, Calvin Ball won Howard County, but I want to say Jealous lost Howard County. So I don't know if there were any coordination, but there was a literate population who said we are going to support Hogan. We're not going to support Jealous, and we are going to support Calvin Ball. So, but we want to shift to talking about coalitions, and I know one of your priority counties, because we talked about the priorities for Maryland being a priority state for the NAACP, but you had to create your own priorities in the state of Maryland, and one of those counties is Wicomico County. And one of the coalition organizations in Wicomico County already doing work is an organization called Faith Over Fear Economic Development. And we are lucky enough to have Miss Angela Morton on the call so she can kind of give you an idea of who is doing some of the work in Wicomico. How you doing, Miss Morton?
Good afternoon. I'm doing well. Thank you.
Hello. How you doing? Can you give us an idea of what Faith Over Fear Economic is economic empowerment is all about.
Yes. Faith Over Fear Economic Empowerment Inc. is about helping minority businesses in Wacomico County just to be more visible and create sustainability. I believe that it's important that you see that Black-owned businesses do exist there in Wacomico County. And just through COVID, we saw the need to keep the Black-owned businesses visible because most of them is their livelihood.
Okay, so you're talking to Mr. Martin Mitchell, who needs organization like yours, because I guess as it pertains to the meat of what you're saying is visibility for Black businesses, but Black businesses can't get, um, I guess, support and be empowered if elections aren't won by people who are sensitive to that. Is that why you're connecting your voter registration stuff to policies for businesses?
Yes, I think it's important that the businesses start being like advocates for themselves. All the members all the business members had to be registered voters, and get to know who their local representatives are. So, they can start advocating for the change that's needed.
That's wonderful. So,
Okay.
Mr. Mitchell, what can you do with that?
What can I do with that? I mean, um, it seems like connecting them with the branch to do, some coordinated organizing.
All right. So, um, how is it? Are there any other examples of organizations um, that branches should connect with? I guess in these local coalitions.
You're asking me, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So examples of some organizations that we're doing coordinations with, and we will be CASA Maryland, but also I know I think it was Allegheny County and Frederick County. There's a lot of different state and federal prisons, and so organizations that do a lot of like reentry work or um, prison justice work. They're great to partner up with. Like I was connecting them with Out for Justice or Job Opportunity Task Force or Life After Release, because I know that in the last election they were literally going around the state registering people to vote because one, if they weren't convicted, they still can vote, but a lot of times they don't know. And then two, a lot of people who were released don't know that their rights were restored. So that's definitely important to target those, what they would say, low propensity voters.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
So so Ms. Morton, your outreach, is it concentrated on one demographic or is it for everyone?
Really, I was trying to concentrate on the African American voters. It's trying to increase the registration and them coming out to vote. But as we go around, anyone that needs to be registered, we've been able to get them registered.
And as far as like conversation points, have you used the referendum as a conversation point?
Actually, um, we just talk about the people that are running. This is the first time we've had this many African American candidates, that's made the general
Okay.
election. So I thought that was a good talking point alone, to
I
make
know that.
people aware, of the importance of registering to vote and getting out to vote. I mean, and we've been partnering up with actually someone that has a food truck. So, go out in the neighborhoods and been able to give out you get free hot dog, hamburger, drinks, chips, just for registering or even showing proof that you're registered.
Okay. Well, I love to hear that it's the most black candidates ever. So
In the
so
county.
in the county. So
Yeah.
so the secondary talking point would be cannabis on the ballot. That's the secondary one. It's like, hey, you're gonna have the possibility of electing the most black people you ever have, and right thereafter, cannabis justice. You have cannabis justice on the ballot.
So I guess you get excited about cannabis justice, but we need more than that. What else? What else? What else are we gonna get excited about, or what else are we promoting?
Well, women's rights. We said women's rights, and women's rights is on the ballot too.
Okay. All right. So I guess my concern is, are these issues that you're highlighting, talking about smoking cannabis or eating it or whatever y'all do,
Or
and
being a business person,
women's rights, is it gonna motivate folks who are in the most need? The problem we have is black folks is reaching people who are really in pain, who have traditionally expressed that pain, and don't see voting as a hard thing to do if they have to worry about eating and feeding their family first. What message do you have for them?
I'll let Angela go first. I'm a simmer on that one.
Because, and the reason I ask is based on what you said earlier, it becomes transactional again. Because in this case, transactional means that you haven't figured out a way to inspire someone to be enthusiastic. And enthusiasm, to me, means that the folks that you're targeting are not just going to come out themselves, but they're going to bring their friends and family members with them. And at the grassroots level, as you know, it's the case that if they can't connect to a personality, then that's sometimes hard. Um, and then if you're saying that cannabis is one thing that would trigger them, I guess there's a community that would get cannabis. And then you're saying women's rights is something that could connect with them. I don't necessarily uh, think that's like a triggering matter or issue, particularly if you're not a woman. I'm just trying to say that the people who are in the most pain have the same challenges as they did 4 years ago and 8 years ago. And I'm trying to figure out what message do you have for them that would be motivational so that they feel like they're coming out, and as a result of their vote, something's going to happen. And I open up talking about the red line. And, a lot of local people didn't even know there were efforts toward the red line. And I think that the people who were managing that process didn't go to the community and explain this is the value of the red line to your lives as it pertains to revitalization, as it pertains to property values, as it pertains to their transportation reality being enhanced. And, so there was no grassroots support for the red line when it was being worked on.
I want to just make a comment. I think just from what I've seen of getting out to pique people's interest, is there's a need. It's not just when we talk about voting. I just think there's personal needs that are not being met. I mean, just registering, you hear people saying that, how can they find a job? You know, where can they get food? They don't know like the resources out there. So just being able to kind of connect the dots there will help people. I just think they don't know. I'm just finding that's what I've been finding, that they're just not aware, what's going on around them. I think we should do a better job of getting information, out, in the community of resources and things of that nature. And then as we're doing that, we're talking about voting, but I was also able to provide, just one person like a temp agency looking for a job or a connection on how they could get food. So I think more of going out in the neighborhoods versus having an event and waiting for them to come to you. I think that helps get people registered and in tune what's going on.
Okay.
That's a good point. I like that one.
So, I mean, what about the other pieces of your coalitions? Everybody has a role. You're doing your thing. The traditional, I guess, base for the I guess one of the parties is labor, is black folks, is Latinos. It can be, um, uh, traditional base that could get you over, but we still have the fact that those people don't connect with. I continue to go back to the people in most need and communities that are, have broken social determinants, and they have the challenge of, getting up in the morning. I mean, who's doing that outreach?
Who's doing that outreach? I would say several organizations, right? Like I would say several organizations, especially the ones that I was talking about that do the reentry work. Because the thought is like for me, I want to push the next governor, on giving convicted prisoners the right to vote. So the thought of them pushing people that are awaiting trial or people that have left jail or prison, and informing them on their ability, because it wasn't like the state did a public information campaign, on and we know that as far as incarcerating black males between what was 18 to 25, that the state does very well, better than several other states. So I think that's that's an important population for me. I see a lot of people, like men that I've interacted with, that I grew up with, that if they aren't, in prison, they've interacted with the criminal justice system, and some of them feel as though voting isn't important, right? But like, I feel I've gotten some of them involved just from like being like grassroots and just working, in their city. If they came out to a different drive, that we would not only, like she said, have voter registration, but have different resources. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think there's several organizations that are doing the work, but I think that should be the thought is like, how do we get out those unlikely voters? How do we get out those low propensity voters? And the thought is we're not going to just get them out because the sweat of our blood, this blood and sweat of our grandparents, even though that might be the reason I vote.
Okay. Well, like I said, um I mean, I hope, and I hope that part of the process here is that we're looking at, are accepting the fact that Democrats lose when black folks don't come out. They also lose because they don't have a message for black folks to come out. So the notion that you use the term transactional, if you've identified that as a problem, then stop being transactional and really start talking about what, um, as a result of someone voting who is living in a low performing precinct, as a result of them not voting, this is what you haven't got. But when you do vote for us, these policies will change. Now, it's unfortunate now that I guess elected officials or candidates or whoever haven't even gone back to communities and say, because we did this, this is the result. I hope that's happening. Uh, you can tell me it is, but as it pertains to an organization like the NAACP, like Faith Over Fear, saying we need you to come register to vote, and this is what we are going to demand to hold these people that you elect accountable because it's beneficial for your life moving forward.
Mm, yes, I like that. Whether you participate, life goes on. So why not participate?
Because I mean, the example is cannabis is on the ballot. Um, Whatever you call it, cannabis, weed. I mean, I don't even think that.
Well, weed is a plant that's just grown wildly, right? So, I'm talking about the medicinal cannabis, but I'm also talking about, legalization, because I think that, we do want to talk about the economic, but it's more about the reparative justice.
Okay, I get your passion about this issue,
Yeah,
but what we're
exactly.
talking about is how you're going to trigger somebody to come out to vote. And messaging is important, but word usage is too. And cannabis ain't something that someone is going to wake up to say that I need to go vote for it. Using the word marijuana, smack, whatever the grassroots people call it, would work if they know that this institution that they have been hiding from, getting arrested from, no family members who are in jail from it, if they know that that would stop, then that could be the trigger for them to come out to vote. As it pertains to everything that we're talking about, and you said it yourself,
Sure.
nobody told ex-offenders that they could vote because it wasn't important. I don't even see a whole lot of candidates who can benefit in these communities that were victims of mass incarceration. I don't even see them mobilizing ex-offenders to turn out to vote the way I would depend on them, particularly if they lived in these challenged communities. But I don't see that at all. So I guess all I'm saying is the messaging is one. We have opportunity to legalize marijuana, weed, dope, whatever we call it. I'm sorry, dope could be misinterpreted because dope is heroin. So I'll take that back. But marijuana, weed, or whatever you call it. Um, we have that messaging. And then, oh, by the way, think about your uncle, aunt, whoever who's incarcerated for something that people are getting paid to do now. And not only do you have opportunity to take a part of that, a legal part of that industry, but you have opportunity to vote so that nobody else goes to prison because of because of marijuana charges. And oh, by the way, um, the former state's attorney took the position of the policy to not arrest or convict for uh, low drug cases, whether it's marijuana or whatever. And that's an
Yeah.
example. But my point is, if we don't have something that's solidly something that they're experiencing, I mean, you're going to get the same turnout, a same lack of excitement about elections.
To some degree, maybe, but there's also if you could ask 10 Marylanders who, like, if they knew, just 10, you walk randomly, 10 Marylanders, if they knew if cannabis was going to be on the ballot in November, I would willing to bet you half of them didn't. So the thought is, like, they don't have the information. Like you said, the prisoners who left the jail, they don't have the information knowing that they have the ability to vote and they're restored. And there's a lot of Marylanders that don't know what is even coming on the ballot. With like you and I and many other super voters keep having the same conversation amongst us, but we're not really getting out there to the grassroots people who don't listen to the podcast or read Maryland Matters essentially. So the thought is like I believe that it would drive people to the ballot the same way that in Kansas, it drove people to the ballot abortion, so whatever we called it, whether it be under the moniker of cannabis, weed, plant, flower, I do believe it has the ability to drive people to the ballot.
Okay.
I think we need to just to connect. I feel like we give out a lot of handouts. We do things for the community, but for us, we always handing, I'm gonna just use say backpacks, a food drive. It's nothing wrong with doing that, but when you talk about voting, that helps to propel, um, these things that you're not just only doing that. You keep talking about it. I think we just need to constantly talk about it, not just election time, but just throughout that whole voter education piece is needed. I can relate to, I'm going to use Shaquille O'Neal, for example, when he didn't register to vote until George Floyd died. And I think at that point, that's where I felt like African Americans were seen in across the whole U.S. because now we're starting to feel more inclusive. So I think that helps, people feeling that. And I think in the communities, if we make them feel inclusive, that they may have something to say they're going to vote for. So. And so that's why I did like voting. The platform through Faith Over Fear is voting is everyone's business because I feel like we all should be involved in pushing it all the time.
Okay. And we're trying to push get power because the and that's even another thing to explain. I guess it's consistent with what I'm saying here. The NAACP national organization used the theme "This is power" as if we got it. And you know, when we are in the state of Maryland, you have a Republican governor. I don't think you can say you got all the power, but the process of getting that power is voting. So that's why we're trying to put a spin on it and say get power, and this is your opportunity to do it, and you can empower yourself during an election year to achieve that. So that's kind of our call to action, if you will. Now, uh, so y'all are convinced that, and I'm going to close on this, but y'all are convinced that cannabis is going to be a trigger, that women's reproductive rights is going to be a trigger, and what else? Is that what we
Black,
settled
black,
on?
black folks on the ballot.
Black folks on
Mhm.
the ballot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Oh, so that's you contradicting yourself now because you the one said about the transactional stuff. Um, uh,
Well, I'm just highlighting that, as a proud, proud black person, I'm definitely excited to see that. I'm sure there's other people that are going to be excited as well.
well, okay. Well, like I said, what I'm trying to tell you is that there has been a black man on the ballot for governor in the last two elections, and they came up a little short. Um, what I'm asking for is, are we going to do something differently? Because it is the case that people rely on this fact that Maryland's a Democratic state, and the Democratic Party is going to do something special that they didn't do in the last two. Now, I also add here that I don't see the enthusiasm that from anybody in the black community. I don't see the enthusiasm. I don't see the anger. I don't see the fire um, that certain people had on January 6th. Some of those people came from across the country, drove. They took a chance on having uh, guns in their car, all kind of contraband in their car and trucks, and basically gave up their lives. Some of them are not going back home for another 3 or 4 years. So they in their delusional mind, they thought they were going to take over the government. Um, Regardless of what we think, they had an impact on the world with those several hours. What I'm telling you is, those people are voting. They voted. That was in 2021 or 2021. They voted. They lost an election because Biden won Virginia a few months earlier. By the end of the year, in November, that same energy was transferred to an election in Virginia, and they won the governor, they won the attorney, lieutenant governor, attorney, every constitutional officer, and they wiped several board of education seats in the state of Maryland. What I'm trying to tell y'all is, I don't see that type of enthusiasm anywhere to counter it. And I do believe that you either got to max it or you got to do something to undermine it. And I don't think that this guy Dan Cock and his lieutenant governor. I've seen what they've done. This is a man who took a few buses down to January 6th. This lady was a person who attacked a African American superintendent in Queen Anne's County. Spent her day and night trying to give this lady the blues. And so my point to you is that I'll ask you, where is that type of enthusiasm on our side to uplift and make these elections work for Black folks?
Hmm. Sheesh. That's a heavy question, Willie. That's a heavy question. Where's the enthusiasm? I mean, it is the midterms, right? It is the midterms. Um, I think the enthusiasm will come as it gets closer to November. At least I'm hopeful as groups begin to get their plans together, their GOTV plans. So
All
I'm
right.
hopeful. I'm hopeful.
All right. Well, if you say so, but like I said, I think we're up against a storm. Um, I guess there's always this rising action in elections. I guess that peaks on election day, but there has to be some sign that this thing is going to be like it was last time. And I mean, I can't say I see that. I do get around this state, um, and the only different thing I do see is that this guy Dan Koch is don't even have any message. All he has is a picture of him and the most vilified person that there is when it comes down to politics in this country, and that's Donald Trump. This guy is one denomination by being connected to Donald Trump. And what I'm asking from y'all is, uh, where is that type of energy on the other side?
Well, here's the thing, right? I feel as though like the Donald Trumpians and the people that support him are like they are overly and outwardly supportive. Like I feel that the Dems, they're a little more quiet and we're gonna come together, at the last minute. But Donald Trump, he won in many places, right? Donald Trump won in Maryland, but Donald Trump also won in Wyoming.
All right.
So
All right. What I'm gonna do, cause y'all might be too old. I'm gonna invite Dorian Rogers is the president of the NAACP Youth Council for the state of Maryland. I'm gonna invite him on. Hopefully, he has more hot sauce than y'all got, cause y'all.
yeah, I didn't have the good one for that one.
But I want to invite him on, let him express himself, because it is the case that we have to connect with young people, first of all, but we have to have a message to do that. Hopefully, he has a message because y'all tripping. Y'all got me scared. So, Dorian, you got the floor. How you doing? We want you to. I hope you heard the first part of this conversation about election 2022 and what we need to happen as it pertains to lining up with the significant coalitions, talking about the base that we need to empower ourselves, talking about low performing precincts, which we didn't detail, but whenever these low performing precincts turn out, black people turn out in these low performing precincts, Democrats win. Dorian, you have the floor.
Well, thank you, President Flowers. I appreciate the opportunity. Hello, everybody. My name is Rogers. I am the president of the Maryland State Conference Youth and College Division. So just a little brief recap. This is the umbrella that oversees all collegiate and or youth councils across the state of Maryland. So stretching from the University of Maryland College Park Collegiate Chapter all the way down to the Wacomico County Youth Council that we're working to get set up. But we have well over 50 units as of 2021. So although we've been absent for quite some time, we're rebuilding and reconnecting. So everything that I heard so far, it's definitely paramount that we're not just getting people not only registered to vote today, but on top of that, how are we getting them actively enthused and empowered to ensure that they're holding their representatives accountable through the social contract. And so, just listening to what everybody was saying, what are we doing to hold ourselves accountable to ensure that we're educating, informing, and empowering our colleagues, regardless of their age, regardless of their profession, their background, their academics, to, again, get out to the polls, not just for the presidency, of course, it's midterms, but when we're talking about the gubernatorial, but then also our county councils and our city local governments. I know one of the things that we're really observing right now is Wacomico County. As you guys know, John Pesota lost to a candidate that is very much Trump back. And that's somewhat scary, especially when we're talking about, again, the values of having an intersectional society, ensuring that we are promoting a more equitable, accessible, and inclusive place for all peoples. And so, it's very important that we're providing the tools and resources for individuals to make sure that they're not only casting their ballots, but they are following up with their public officials to, again, formulate a government that they wish to see as a democracy we claim to be.
And I think Ernie Davis, he is the Democratic person running against Julie Giordano for
Correct.
Wicomico County exec. If he wins, he would be the first African American to hold that Wicomico County executive position. So you're trying to get people like hyped up about the whole thing, the whole election period down there.
And it's paramount. We make sure that we are whatever candidate that people vote for. Now, granted, again, they need to make sure that they are upholding the notion of an intersectional community and supporting our multicultural communities. But whoever an individual votes for, they need to make sure that they are held accountable to those standards. And, although the NAACP is a nonpartisan organization, it's paramount that, again, if we have candidates that don't stand on those values, then why are we electing them to office? Now, I'm just going to be very blunt. We need to make sure that whatever candidate is running, because Mr. Davis, he needs to make sure that he upholds himself to those principles, especially when it pertains to our youth that are in the county. I know Salisbury University has been going through a lot of things when it pertains to, again, reaffirming diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion, and there's been some silence. And so, we need to match the energy, but also we need to make it clear that, when we vote for a candidate, what are we going to do to continue to follow up with them through their campaign to uphold their promises? Because just because they're Democrat, that's not enough. I think we're seeing that in Wicomico County because we had some strategies play out by individuals in different professions that they have been pushing people to vote Republican in the primary and to switch parties, then vote Republican to dull down the threat of, I can't pronounce her name, but Giordano, and as a Salisbury alum myself, and she is one as well, it's very scary because, again, we pride ourselves on those values. So,
Well, I guess my question to you is, and what they need help with is how to mobilize these young people. What do you have in your box of tricks to do that?
So ultimately, I believe there needs to be great cohesion between the county branch, the collegiate chapter in the area, but then also the organizations that are already on the ground to, again, empower our youth. For example, Phoenix Youth Project is a very prominent nonprofit organization run by CEO and director Amber Green. She's very connected with the youth. And with that, it's not just, ensuring that they are successful in the short term, but within the long term. Why is that important with, again, mobilizing people, especially our intersectional youth, to the table? It requires all of us to recognize that youth is not one monolithic group. Youth is very diverse. You have people of different backgrounds. You have people of different sexual orientation, people with disabilities, like any other person in our community. But we need to make sure that we are able to empathize and to recognize those differences, that diversity. Because once we do that, then we need to factor in what are we doing to equitably, accessibly, and inclusively include them to the table to know, so that they know that the ballot is important, that they know that they have power behind it. Because what we're seeing is that a lot of youth, they may feel dismissed when it comes to the external threats, but then also the internal threats. Sometimes there's elements of people feeling like there's some condescending notion behind, like, oh, if you vote for a certain candidate and you're automatically against us, but we need to make sure that we're providing the tools cohesively so that they know that their voice matters. But again, it's not just through the ballot, it's also through following up with their public officials, making sure that you call them on the dime when something's not matching up with the timeline that they put down. You're teaching them those elements, and a great pool to get that from is through the educational system. As flawed as it is, a lot of the schools, a lot of the stuff that you're learning in those classrooms, it applies to, again, being an engaged individual. You can use that to transform the system, but in order to do that, you need to know how the system works. So those are some tricks that I have in my sleeve.
So I guess, what is the message? We were talking earlier about messaging and what could trigger turnout and enthusiastic turnout for this election. You can let me know. They mentioned cannabis. They mentioned reproductive rights for women. They also mentioned, what else was did he talk about? Are these messages that can inspire young people to come out to vote?
So me personally, I think it's somewhat broad because, again, when you talk about the intersections attached to, let's say, for example, legalizing marijuana or cannabis, what are you doing to apply them to the other social issues that are going on? For example, mental health, because again, you can't affirm one thing and then discredit another, because we have a culture within our society, especially Maryland, even though we've had pretty progressive laws that have been in the works, mental health is still viewed as something that, oh, you need to be fixed. But if you're interconnecting those avenues to then say, if we legalize this, they can tap into other industries or to other topics and inequities, then we can really start to show that it doesn't just affect your neighbor, it doesn't just affect your colleague, it affects you as well. So how do you interconnect those I guess specialized agendas or specialized topics to then reaffirm the importance of, again, getting involved in your elections on the local and state level? So although they are very broad, I think if that was to be taken, there needs to be greater interconnectivity when it pertains to how those things affect the everyday person.
Okay, I guess I understand your point, but when you're trying to get people to come out and vote, you got to break that down and put it in some local terms.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I'm trying to make it easy for you because you have, connection to young people. If there were 2 or 3 things you're going to tell a young person to register, and then don't forget you got several options. And a lot of people are not exercising those options. You can mail in your ballot, you can early vote,
Mm-hmm.
and you can vote on election day. Those are 3 options to voting. What I'm trying to figure out is what are young people going to be triggered to come out and do 3 of those options? And what you said makes me think that they ain't gonna come out.
So again, there needs to be greater cohesiveness when it pertains to getting that message out. So it has to come from entities that are within the sphere of those communities, especially when you're talking about youth. So then the question shifts to, what are we doing to get out into the places that our youth are at? For example, if they're hanging out at their local after school programs, if, let's say, for example, they are very interested in a lot of the community service work, because there's certain areas, for example, Montgomery County, where we have a large group of people that are heavily involved in getting involved with nonprofits. What are we doing to go to them to then articulate it? Now, in terms of breaking down the process, because again, not all some people will always claim that, they're not interested in the politics. They're like, oh, well, I'm not really too knowledgeable of the politics. Most of the time, they've already demonstrated their knowledge, even if it's not in the jargon that people use in political dialogue. Again, what are we doing to empower them to do so? So to answer your question, going into the communities and to the locations that our youth are at. Because then when you do that, then you're showing that you have interest in them. So then when you get their interest, then what you do is you translate it into, again, going back to what we were talking about, you talk about the legalization of marijuana. Again, just as an example, this not only applies to, again, of course, the material usage, but how does this tap into, again, mental health, to education, to the prison industrial complex, for example. I'll give you a real-time one. A lot of college students in Maryland right now are a little bit heated right now. I'm using this as a euphemism. They're very heated at the fact that there was a time, and I'm gonna be honest, there's still a time where a lot of the goods that are being made within our prisons in Maryland are being translated into our universities, into our schools when it comes to furniture. People didn't know that. But again, the way in which, and I'm referring to myself now personally, because again, I was one of the people who had to articulate it at Salisbury, you have to interconnect with their experiences. So when we're talking about, if we're an institution of higher learning that values the abilities and the liberties that are supposed to be protected under the U.S. Constitution, but yet we still have codes that are locking up our people and still integrating the elements of slavery, again, that's already that college youth, for example, again, that's just one group of people. Also recognize people who may not have gone to college. That's an interest. So what are you doing to translate that interest over? And then to break it down to a way where it makes sense, whether it's programming. For example, let's talk about Voting Tuesday. I mean, I just threw it off the top of my dome, but, if people like food, how do you interconnect food insecurity with, again, the power of the ballot and following up on your vote to ensure that your candidate, regardless of if they get in or get out, continues to fight for those things? Because what I've noticed is, youth in particular, just as the focus group we're talking about, they notice what's going on. It's just a matter of, again, giving them the tools and resources to follow up, because they're seeing a lot of people come out and saying that they're running for positions, but they don't see them after that. What are we doing to hold them accountable to continue to deliver the promises?
Okay. All right. Well, like I said, I think we have a situation where we all have to have all hands on deck. The idea, again, behind the interest in the NAACP making Maryland a priority state is for us to figure it out, and we have a lot of work to do and a short time to do it in. I think it's 100 days or less, and we've got to figure out how to make that happen. So I guess I'm dispatching all of you to to get that together because we're gonna need all these folks to come out and vote. Are in the worst case scenario, we have a Trump-backed um, candidate who's going to run our state for the next 4 years. A Trump-backed candidate who has already put on display his disgust for this country, his lack of trust for our institutions, and his lieutenant governor who doesn't care about what you're saying about interconnectionality, doesn't care about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and doesn't care about empowering people who are not in power. So that's what we're faced with. And if we can't get a message out to stop that, then we all need to give up our jobs about trying to say that we're organizers, because that's what we need now, especially if you're a Democrat in a Democratic state full of Democrats, and we can't keep out a person who embraces Donald Trump.
And you know,
So
we as a,
we're
I'm sorry.
go ahead, go ahead.
And we, over the last couple of weeks, we've been meeting with state senators and delegates, and you know, it's no secret, out of full transparency, for the most part, it's been Democrats. You know, so again, although we are nonpartisan, who is investing their time to again come before us, especially if we reach out in that olive branch? But you are correct and you're accurate on the notion that again, regardless of our affiliation, you know, if candidates do not back those values, then they obviously should not be in office. And you know, every party that we reached out to, because we reached out to the Moore administration, we reached out to the Libertarian candidate and the Independent, but the only ones that didn't reply was, of course, Dan Cox and his administration. Still, as of yet, and that might change, but that again, that's a paper trail to reaffirm the notion that is that a priority: diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion. So.
Right. Well, that's it. We have our hands full. We got a lot of work to do, and we're gonna need to come together to make this a better election than the last two. So I look forward to working with everybody to make that happen. But we got to be enthusiastic. We got to figure out who our coalition partners are, and we have to have a message that's going to trigger enthusiastic turnout. So I wish y'all luck out there. Thank you for coming on this show, and let's make it happen for the people who need it. And hopefully we can inspire them, figure out a way to inspire them to come out and vote, and then deliver to them the hope that they have in our system, which is waning. But we have to be the representatives to make that work for them. All right. I
Thank
want to
you.
thank y'all. Thank y'all for the hour, and we'll look forward to getting reports from y'all out there in the field. Thank you a lot.
All
Take
right.
care.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good